It's kind of noisy out here right now. Christians are having some trouble with some of the things that I'm saying, and I wanted to address that. These crickets are really loud. And let's start off with a book that I'd like you to read, and that is The Pursuit of God by A.W. Tozer. A.W. Tozer, Aidan Wilson Tozer, was a pastor in Chicago in the 1930s and 40s and 50s, and he wrote a book in 1948 called The Pursuit of God. And if you think the things that I am saying about Christianity and about Jesus are foreign to you, then I would encourage you to see that actually people have been talking this way for a long time. I've read that book well over 100 times, probably closer to 200 times now. And Tozer starts off the book in the introduction. He's talking about how he's writing this book for God's children that are really trying to reach God. He says at the very end of the intro that although my fire may be small, it is yet real, and there may be those that can light their candle at its flame. I started reading this book when I was 17 years old, and that's what happened. And the interesting thing is that there's another book that's had a serious influence in my life, and that is by Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. And it's just kind of interesting. You got Eckhart Tolle and A.W. Tozer and The Pursuit of God and The Power of Now. And then you see that like the second chapter of The Pursuit of God, which is called The Blessedness of Possessing Nothing, is, I can't wait to ask Tolle if he just basically plagiarized that chapter, because the parallels and the writing style are so similar. And it's obviously why Tolle uses, well, it's not obvious that this book is the reason why, but Tolle constantly uses Jesus as the example of consciousness over and over and over again, all through The Power of Now. And he actually wrote another book that really would be Tolle's take on the gospel of Jesus, which he calls A New Earth, appropriately titled. I have been in the ministry most of my life. I went to seminary. I've been a pastor. I've been a youth pastor. I've been a senior pastor. I've been an associate pastor. I studied Jesus from a first century historical and cultural context for 13 years. I still study that from time to time. There's always more to learn. And so I don't approach this whole thing with profound ignorance. But it really did take the discovery of consciousness to fully appreciate just what is going on here. And I want to explain this. And some of you are just not going to get this or agree with it, and that's okay. But the seed will be sown, and maybe in time you'll see what I'm talking about. When you become conscious, when you become self-aware, where you realize that you are not your mind, and you are able to disconnect from the mind and enable your true self, your consciousness, to suddenly arise, which is in every single one of us and is the way that every single one of us should live. And when you suddenly achieve this state, and you then, and I didn't even have to go back and read the words of Jesus, just from my knowledge alone, it was a mind-blowing experience to suddenly understand so much more. And certain passages where Jesus was talking where it sounds very New Age, right? Where, for example, where Jesus said, the Some will say that, here is the kingdom and there is the kingdom. And he said the kingdom of heaven is not some place where you can go to, but the kingdom of heaven is within you. It sounds very New Age, but this is what Jesus Christ said. And when you become conscious, all of a sudden you appreciate that, you understand what he was saying. And then you start to realize that Jesus Christ was talking about this born-again experience as being this experience of consciousness all the time. Somehow we lost this. But the mind, with its ego, wants to create religions. And that's how we ended up with Christianity. Not Christ, but Christianity. And these religions get formed when honest, sincere people have an idea, and maybe they're not so honest, maybe they're a little deceptive, and they start creating something weird like Joseph Smith did with Mormonism, where he intentionally deceived people and lied under oath in court of law about being able to read Hebrew and all kinds of ridiculous things. Got all these people lying on his behalf. And then out of that, a box of religion is created. And you polish the box, you put nice things in the box, but it's still just this box. And there are elements of God inside of the box. And you can look in the box and go, oh yeah, I can see something of God in here. Of course. But God exists far more outside of that box than he does inside of the box. And Christianity as a whole is no different from Mormonism in this regard, or any religion for that matter. Hinduism, Buddhism, it doesn't matter what it is. All these men have created this box and inviting people to come and live inside of this box. I can't do that because the box is an egoic creation of the mind. The mind and its ego, which is created by all of these identity attachments that we generate throughout our lives. The ego creates this box, and then the ego falls in love with this box because the ego just wants to make sense of things. And that's what religions promise to do, to make sense of the world. But they don't. They don't make sense of the world at all. They make sense of very small parts of the world, and there's lots of good information to learn, to discover inside of all different kinds of religions. And I'm not talking, it's not the same thing as saying that all religions lead to God, but all religions have some element of truth in them, and all truth is from source, from God. So, a long, long time ago, probably 16, 17 years ago, I stopped calling myself a Christian. I was still in ministry. I would say, no, I'm not a Christian, I'm a follower of Jesus. And, you'd get some people that would immediately know exactly what you're talking about, high five, like, yeah, man, right with you. I understand totally where you're coming from. And then there's other people that'll be like horrified, like, what are you talking about? Like, there's no such thing as you're either a Christian or you're not. Really? Christians like to believe that Christianity has a monopoly on the Jewish Messiah. It's kind of funny, isn't it? But they do. Christians think they're the ones that have a monopoly on Jesus. That if it's about Jesus, it's about us, it's about Christianity. And that's an assumption, and it's a false assumption. It's incorrect. This idea that because you've built this religious control system that has borrowed so much in terms of terms, names, mainly that's it, a little bit of tradition, and created this religious control system, and you say, well, we own this Jesus. I'm sorry, but that's not true. You don't own Jesus. If you're a Christian, let me assure you, you do not have a monopoly on the risen Christ, okay? You don't. When you start to understand that, you start to realize that one can be a passionate pursuer of the teachings of Jesus and Jesus himself and everything that he was talking about, and absolutely not be a Christian. In fact, even be absolutely opposed to Christianity, which I am. Christianity, in my opinion, is the greatest hindrance, the greatest stumbling block to a person encountering the risen Christ. Without any qualification, without any doubt. The devil doesn't have anything on Christianity. We live in a world today where science and the metaphysical world are beginning to converge, where methodological materialism is beginning to fade away as an explanation for all of life. Vitalism has tried to be debunked by scientists for centuries. Rene Descartes kicked all that off. And just like he was wrong about I think, therefore I am, he was wrong about vitalism as well. But with the convergence of the sciences and the metaphysical world, in the next 10 to 20 years, there's going to be a massive shift of consciousness towards understanding that there is a source, there is a consciousness behind everything. Behind you, behind, all living matter. There is something driving this. Right? Evolution as a theory is beginning to break down as we begin to learn more and more about biology, and we see the sheer inadequacy, and we begin to see that information is not carried in DNA like we thought. Obviously there's a lot of information there, but the information in DNA really is just for the coding of proteins. There's no information in DNA for the coding of organelle, like creating body parts or anything like that, and we don't know where it is. And we have a pretty good grip on everything that's in the human body. We have electron microscopes. We can see to, atomic level of detail now. And so we're pretty sure there's nothing else left in the body to discover along the lines of something like DNA, where all of this information might be contained. Now, if this is new to you, what I'm saying is completely true. You probably don't hear it in American or even Western educational systems. But evolution is a theory in crisis, and has been for some time. And it's kind of a shh, don't tell anyone kind of deal in the sciences. The same way we look at the fossil record and the way we look at everything that is here, and we say, well, obviously it all evolved, the same can be applied when we look at an automaker like Ford, and we see the progression of the vehicles becoming better and better and better over time, and go, see, it's evolution. Well, it also could have been the intelligent designer at Ford that was creating this natural progression, right? We see a very similar thing in biology. There is a mind, there is consciousness behind all of this, and science is beginning to now encroach into that territory. Rupert Sheldrake has a fabulous book called Science Set Free. If you're interested in this, go take a look at that. So after spending all my life in ministry, studying scripture, I was still absolutely racked with depression and anxiety, and it was completely and utterly destroying my life. And then in January of this year, I encountered consciousness. I woke up. What is consciousness? It's hard to really describe, especially to a person that is stuck inside of the fishbowl. I use this analogy. It's like if you're the fish inside the fishbowl, well, you don't know anything outside of that fishbowl. That's all there is. And so trying to explain to a fish in a fishbowl what the world is like outside of the fishbowl, you say, well, there's no water out here. Well, you can still move around. How's that possible? Right? And it's a very interesting dilemma. How do you explain to the fish in the fishbowl the universe? How do you explain to a person that is stuck inside of their mind, that isn't conscious, that isn't self-aware, that they are not their mind? How do you explain that concept to them? Because it's outside of the mind. And their thinking is purely in the mind. And so it's very difficult. But we're talking about, well, here's an analogy that I use in the present sessions. And as I explain this in kind of detail in my present sessions, already what happens as I explain it is some people begin to feel that disassociation from mind automatically because your consciousness knows this is true. And that's why these present sessions are so radically successful in complete life transformation, including my own. When you are dreaming, there are those very rare dreams you have that we call lucid dreams. And a normal dream is just kind of like you're strapped to a chair or watch. It's like, you know, a ride in Disneyland, watching everything go by. And when you have a lucid dream, you pop out of that person strapped into the chair. You pop out of that person, and all of a sudden, you become the observer of what? The mind. And the vivid delusions and fantasies that it's creating. And now you've got all this power and control. You can look around, you can be aware, and you say, well, here's my mind, here's the part of me that's dreaming, and you can now manipulate and control the dream. You can fly in your dream, you can control outcomes, at least to some degree. Well, that's very interesting. We don't really give much thought to that, and it's certainly not part of the conversation of humanity as to what happens to this dreamer when we wake up. When you wake up, that same dreamer that was creating all those vivid delusions as you sleep is still creating vivid delusions as you are awake. And that's why we end up falling into these boxes of religion, and we get so afraid of stepping outside. And when somebody wants to challenge us to step outside of the box, it's like, get away from me, you're denying Jesus, you're denying Christianity, all this. So it's important that we achieve this level of consciousness for everybody. Fly, go away. To pop out of the mind and to see what the mind is doing, to be able to see each individual thought as it comes through, instead of being stuck inside of your thoughts, to pull back from them and to be able to observe them. That's enlightenment. This is what the Buddha achieved. But this isn't just for a select few people. This is for every single person ever. I mean, this is what Jesus was. Completely awake, completely enlightened. This is why people compare Buddha and Jesus all the time. Now, I'm not saying that they're on par. I think Jesus was incomparably different to Buddha. But it's not like suddenly Jesus comes along and now we can achieve consciousness. People were conscious before that. And we can be conscious after that. We can be conscious now, in the here and now. So somebody this morning posted on one of my posts and said, you know, it sounds like what you're teaching is New Age spiritualism. Well, I still haven't had opportunity today to Google that and to see what New Age spiritualism is. I have never been involved in the New Age. I don't know anything about the New Age. I don't know what New Age beliefs are. It's like somebody saying, well, you're sounding very Buddhist. I don't know anything about Buddhism, sorry. I mean, that's not true now, you know, some months on, because I keep getting a lot of stuff sent to me by people, but I know a little tiny bit about Buddhism now. But Buddhism hasn't influenced any of this. I'm not getting any of this from Buddhism. I'm not getting any of this from New Age beliefs. I'm getting this from an encounter that I had where all of a sudden I realized my own consciousness and my own mind and certain other things like my ego, and you start to, your whole world shifts. Your whole entire world shifts on a dime. Everything you thought you knew before is now, you question it. It's, you know, if you've seen the film The Matrix, it's just like that. You know, when Neo is pulled out of the pod in the Matrix, and he's on the hovercraft and he opens his eyes for the first time. And he says, why do my eyes hurt? And Morpheus says, because you've never used them before. This idea that, is very similar when you become conscious. When I achieved a state of consciousness and I stood up in my room here in my friend's house and I looked around, I literally felt like I had woken up from a lifelong dream. And I mean, quite literally. I immediately was looking around, like questioning, like, what is this? Where did this come from? Like, are all my memories fake? Did the whole planet just suddenly begin at this moment? Because the experience of awakening is so unbelievably profound. This absolutely immediate waking up. This is what happens at night when you have a lucid dream. That's why you remember them. You may not remember what happened in a lucid dream, but you remember them. You remember you've had them because that experience is so shocking. That experience of waking up, becoming conscious inside of your dream. That is your true self, your consciousness suddenly becoming the observer of the mind. And in a present session, I teach you how to live in this state permanently, all day long. And so it may sound weird, but right now as I record this video, I'm completely present. I am conscious. I am aware of the thoughts. I can see my thoughts. I'm not stuck inside of my head. It's a very interesting phenomenon. It's a very interesting experience. And so trying to explain this, how I feel, the way I see the world right now, to a person that has not experienced consciousness is darn near impossible. But somehow I worked out how to do that in a present session. So don't be afraid. I mean, if you believe in God, what on earth have you got to be afraid of? What did the disciples say about fear and about how nothing can separate you from the love of God? So drop the fear. Stop saying this is Antichrist. Well, then if this is Antichrist, come and find out for yourself. But here's the thing. When you become conscious and you become still, and you start to become truly in touch with yourself, that is when all of a sudden the teachings of Jesus, where he said the kingdom of God is within you, becomes so freaking real it's not funny. And then as you stay in that place and you go deeper and deeper, you begin to feel exactly what the scripture says, this wellspring of joy from within you. I've had people I've taken through a session that have started to laugh. Not a mocking laugh, a laugh of total joy. It's happened to 2 people where they have experienced and they're just like, what's going on? You're experiencing the joy within you, right? Yes. Wow. And as you go deeper, then all of a sudden you feel something that can only be hard to explain, can only be explained as drawing close to God. But this is what Jesus said. And we've mistaken some of his words because people were unconscious and didn't understand this, and they created the box of Christianity, and they're asking you to stay inside the box. And there are elements of truth, and there are aspects of God that you can discover in the box. But there's so much more outside of the box than what is in the box. And I'm inviting you to take a leap of faith and begin to explore outside of the box of Christianity. Because this isn't Antichrist. This is about falling in love with the Savior all over again. This is the most beautiful, wonderful, life-transforming experience. I mean, as I said, I've been in ministry my whole life, and I've never seen the transformations that I'm seeing in an instant in a present session. Why is that? Why is that? And we talk about the process of regeneration, when the Spirit of God comes upon a person and we see this whole new life begin to take shape. And we do see this in the church. We see it all the time. But nowhere near to the degree that we see in a heartbeat in a present session. There's something very, very interesting about what is going on here. you all of a sudden feel more in touch with everything. All of a sudden. And Jesus says to, treat others like you want them to be treated. Or he says, what you do unto the least of mine, you're doing unto me. All of a sudden, this takes on a whole practical perspective. Because all of a sudden you realize that our being, which all came from God, right? All came from God. And so did that person, and so did that person, and so did that person. And who are we to treat any of these people any differently to the way we would want to treat ourselves? So this has made me more in touch with the teachings of Jesus than anything in my whole life. Some people would say, I'm more of a real Christian today than I ever was. But it's not about Christianity. It's not about being a Christian. It's about being a creation of God and about the pursuit of God and understanding this. And this is going to be my life from here on out. I want to pursue God. I want to discover everything I can. I'm writing a book that'll be out in 3 or 4 years, I expect. I think it's going to take a long time to write. I want it to be a good book. And it's called The God Wrestler, which is, by the way, what my name means. Israel comes from the story of Jacob, who wrestled with God, had his name changed from Jacob to Israel. The pursuit of the divine is what lights me up. To understand what this world is and how it's wired and how we are wired and how we can introduce people to living a whole new life that is the life that Jesus was talking about. Finally. So don't be afraid of the things that I'm teaching. I'm not saying to embrace them, but allow them to challenge you. And again, get Tozer's book, The Pursuit of God, and then you'll be hearing all these echoes of what I've been saying for years in this book. And really it's me echoing Tozer in a way, but it's not. It's both of us echoing God. The Pursuit of God by A.W. Tozer. Punch it into Amazon, get the book, and devour it. Read it over and over and over again, please. And when you're brave enough, when you're ready to see the other side, when you're ready to live consciously, and you're ready to discover that it's not just for the Buddha and a few people throughout history that enlightenment is for, it's for everybody. This is the whole point. This is the message of Jesus, the rebirth, the regeneration, this awakening. This is what it's all about. This is not antichrist. This is the fulfillment of the gospel of the kingdom. I'm absolutely convinced of that. This is what it means to be born again. We've lost it. We forgot this. Somehow we forgot this, but this is what it's all about. Try to break free from the box. The box does not have all of the answers. It doesn't. And I don't have all the answers neither, but I'm on a trajectory of growth and pursuit of the divine. And I will never have all the answers. None of us ever will. But it's not going to stop me, slow me down from that pursuit of God. And I thank God that I encountered Tozer when I was 17 years old, 16 or 17. That book lit me up. It lit a fire inside of me. Tozer says at the end of the introduction of that book, though my fire may be small, it is yet real, and there may be those that can light their candle at its flame. And it sure did light mine. I am against Christianity because it is a control system that prevents people from a full embrace, awareness, understanding of Jesus Christ. Even though to a Christian that might sound like a complete and utter contradiction, an absurdity even. But it's not. That's why when I posted yesterday and I said that the abandonment of religion is not the end of the pursuit of God, it is merely the beginning. God is not going to be contained inside of your box. He's not interested in your box. Go outside and look around you and smell the air and see the world you live in. There's so much more to discover outside of the box, and it's all God. It all belongs to Him. If you have questions, put them below. I'd appreciate a thumbs up if you like this. Please share it with other people perhaps. I know that some people will give me some criticism over this. That's okay, it's been my life. So I'm fine with that. But I know there's a few that are going to listen. And I know there's a few of you that are listening to this going, I don't know what it is, but there's something inside of me that's going, yeah, he's speaking the truth. I want what he has. Come and get it. Let me show you this. I'm not teaching a new religion. All I'm teaching you is how you're wired and how you can become conscious and sustain consciousness all day long. And you've seen some of the testimonials that I've posted. People's lives have been completely and utterly transformed. This is what we want for the whole world, for everybody to be transformed like this. It excites me. I'm so passionate about this. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope this has fed you in some way. Hey Tiaki, you want to come up here and say hello to everyone before we go? No, come right here. No, go over there. Okay, now come over here. Come up here, come up here, come up here. No, she never listens. Okay, forget it. She never listens to a word I say. She's becoming stubborn. She's like an old dog. She's only 3. Hey, you stubborn dog? Yeah, you don't listen to me anymore, do you? No, you got a life of your own. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate you. And I'm going to create more content like this. And in a few years, I'm releasing other books before The God Wrestler. I'm releasing a book very soon, hopefully this year. Well, it will be this year. Absolutely will be this year. Called Don't Give Up, Surrender. And that's more catered to people that are just down in the dumps, suffering from mental health issues, depression, anxiety, sadness, suicidal thoughts. Please, please buy the book. And if you can't afford to buy it, I'll give it to you for free. I guarantee, I promise you. Get it into you because it will help you. It'll be the experiences that I've had and why I was able to go from being a life completely and totally crippled by anxiety and depression. Tiaki is a service animal, right? She is a prescribed service dog for my social anxiety disorder. Now I don't need her anymore because I don't have anxiety anymore at all. So, that book will be a fantastic help to you. And in the meantime, don't wait for it. Come and do a present session because much of what we're doing in a present session is going to be in the book. Don't wait. Come and get this relief from your anxiety and your depression and your PTSD and so forth now. Why wait? Why wait? Come and get it, all right? I want to help you. I really do, all right? Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.